Anat, maybe you want to start then?
Good. Okay, we'll be happy to. So, hi everybody, and it's exciting to see you, although it's mostly your head and shoulders, but excited to see everybody in our webinar. We really got a mass of registrations, which means that we should probably try to do it more often, and we will try to do it more often. We're here from Expert Team, Yochi and myself, and we have Laura and Karen from Zoomin on the topic of AI adoption. A word about us, and Laura will then introduce Zoomin. Expert Team. Well, I'm sure you all know because a lot of you we work. A lot of you we work with in the documentation arena. We also specialize in training development. Our slogan is spread the knowledge, and that's what we try to do in the disciplines of documentation, training, knowledge management, and mainly try to see the holistic view of who is our target audience and how do we tailor the information that they need as best as possible. So part of our working with the community and a lot of you, we try once in a while, and every time we do it, we're saying we're not doing it enough, but we try once in a while to kind of get you all together and bring on some good topic that people are interested in, and to share our knowledge with everybody. So thanks for coming, and Yochi, please introduce yourself and our guests.
And let's go. Anat, thanks. I'm Yochi Eisner, Technical Documentation Manager at Expert Team, and your host for AI adoption in documentation. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes. Anat had already said we're putting everyone on mute for now. This is going to be recorded. There'll be a link sent to absolutely everyone as soon as it's ready. And we will have a short Q&A at the end, so please jot down your questions throughout the session. And let's jump in. We're addressing the impact of AI adoption on documentation. We need to understand, all of us, the implications and the consequences of this adoption, both on technical writing teams, product managers, anyone that has to deal with the documentation process. And we'll begin with a discussion of how integrating AI into the Knowledge Hub transforms not just the documentation creation, but also management and maintenance, with our expert panelists from Zoomin. Laura Novich, if you can wave your hand, Docs team manager. Laura is a well-known documentarian, instructor, and mentor in technical documentation, and has been in the field since 1997. And Karen Brown, who's VP Value and Enablement. Karen brings a unique perspective to our discussion because of her expertise in product value and also conducting ROI, return on investment analysis. In addition, Karen helps documentation managers demonstrate the value of their work to their superiors, something that's become more and more important, and also how to use AI tools to enhance their information systems. For those that aren't familiar with Zoomin, just a few words. Zoomin revolutionizes customer experience by consolidating product user guides, support articles, developer documentation, and more to deliver the right answers to the right people, and thereby enhancing trust and customer self-service. Then we're going to have a discussion on change management with our very own Anat, our CEO, who's an expert on this field. And we're going to discuss how major organizational changes due to AI, how we can handle them, and how we can address team resistance and encourage a smooth adoption, and also support team members throughout this process. We've dealt with this with our clients, and it's a very important topic that everyone has to consider. At the end, what we want to give all of our listeners here is how to understand how AI adoption could mean and what the challenges are within your own organizations. And so we're going to start right now with just understanding a little bit of the Zoomin documentation environment. So Laura, could you provide us with an overview of the types of documentation you provide and offer, the platforms and authoring tools you utilize, and the number of documents housed in your Knowledge Hub?
Sure. First of all, can everyone hear me? Awesome. So I wanted to just start by just saying a quick thank you to Yochi and Anat for inviting us on this very important webinar. Zoomin is a content delivery platform. It's not a documentation authoring tool. So as such, what it does is it allows technical communicators like myself and all of you here today, the ability to choose the tool that you want to use. This means that you can match your documentation type to the tool that best suits you. And then with Zoomin, just seamlessly publish to your documentation portal. At Zoomin, we took this idea and we used it to our advantage. We were in a situation where we needed to rapidly deploy new documentation as our company was in a hyper development phase. We brought the product management team into the fray and we trained them to write product documentation. We decided to use the tools that they felt the most comfortable with. And this meant for us in the docs team that we were moving from a tool such as Ditto to Confluence in order to allow them the flexibility to write with the tools that they felt most comfortable. In order to support this endeavor, we created 5 different KB formats as templates and gave them the ability to create many different knowledge-based articles with the doc team serving as editors, trainers, and writers.
How many documents, excuse me, I just want to stop. How many documents do you have within your Knowledge Hub at this point? What are we talking about? Thousands, hundreds?
Currently, just under 2,000.
Okay, and how did that, and just to kind of put you back into the AI adoption part of it, were you at all, you or your team, were you involved in any of the decisions on AI adoption beforehand, before your process went into effect?
We were part of the discussion, but we were not necessarily part of the decision on whether or not to include AI as part of our product offering.
Okay.
So the decision on whether or not to use AI as a tool, obviously that was something that we could do on our own. But at Zoomin, we brought AI into our product offering, which is something much larger.
How long did this whole process, it's a double-barreled question, how long did the process take to adopt AI? And, or I should say, when did you adopt AI? And then how long did that integration take?
So AI, I'm sure everyone remembers that GPT made its debut sometime around November of 2022. As early as March 2023, we rolled out Zoomin GPT. And with it came AI-assisted search for our documentation portal.
Okay. Did that mean that you had to change the documentation? Did that physically change the way that you worked with your documentation, how you created it?
No, actually it didn't. What we found is that because we had a highly organized content that was in predictable formats, because we only used 5 different documentation types, it actually helped AI. This type of model with highly structured content, even though we weren't using a structured authoring tool, allowed AI to deliver wonderful answers to our audience. Now, obviously, a large language model is something that develops over time. So we have noticed that our answers have become much more accurate since our debut in 2023, and have instituted different methods to make sure that it does remain accurate.
Now, before we get into, sorry, go on.
Sure. I just wanted to add to what Laura said. So hi, everyone. It's Karen here. So when we launched Zoomin GPT for our customers, ourselves, and any company that would like to implement AI in their technical content, we basically had two use cases in mind. The first one is how to make end users' lives more easy, because we saw, today people are spending less time reading each topic page and they want fast, accurate answers. Whether it's through a query and an answer, whether it's summarizing long topics, and so on and so forth. But the second use case was to actually make technical writers' lives easier. And for that, we launched what we call the editorial co-pilot, which basically gives all of you as technical writers AI-based recommendations on how to improve the content that you're writing. Now, in order to do that, basically, you need to tell AI, or you need to tell the model guidelines, right? Like, based on which guidelines are you going to make recommendations for me to be better, right? And so you can either use a very generic prompt. Let's say, I'm Karen, I'm a technical writer. I want you to help me make this topic page better. Give me suggestions, bullets, points, things like that. Or it can be gradually grounded in your own authoring guidelines, which is awesome, because then you don't have to rethink, what you're going to ask AI to do. You're actually telling the model, here's my guidelines, please make very clear recommendation how I can be better. Now, when we launched those two use cases, obviously the first thing that we did is try it on ourselves. So Laura and her team basically spearheaded implementing all these capabilities in our own documentation portal, which today you can all, go to and basically see it and try it out. Our content is completely public and open. You won't be able to see the editorial co-pilots. Obviously, they're internal for the technical writers, but that's how we started to gradually roll it out. And today we have thousands, if not more, of users actually using those capabilities in different documentation portals.
And to go on with that is, did that affect then how your workflows and your responsibilities? I understand that it made it easier, but sometimes making things easier makes it a little bit harder. So how did that affect the documentation flows, the responsibilities within the team? Were there changes? Were there noticeable changes?
Not really, in that we just strive to, create more documents to have better breadth and depth in our documentation. But because at Zoomin we do have a fantastic analytics engine, we are able to analyze our customers' behavior and act accordingly.
I'm gonna get into that in a second. I just wanted to understand, though. I still want to start with the very beginning of it. Has it changed also your interviewing approach or the type of information that you need for your SMEs? No matter what, we still have to work with them. And so how has not just the writing, but how has that beginning process been changed, or has it been affected at all?
It really hasn't made too much of a change in the way we have been working, because at Zoomin, the technical writers are also subject matter experts to some degree.
Okay.
To a large degree, and which is a different paradigm than many of the audience is today. So what I would envision is that the changes would be that AI can assist you in developing more focused questions. Right? This is outside of your product offering, right? So you can ask GPT to give you questions to ask your SMEs. For me, what I do is I often try to understand what the impact is, what's in it for me, why should I enable this feature? And I find that AI keeps me cognizant of that.
Wow. What prompt do you use for that? Can you just give like a quick example of a prompt?
Sometimes I will simply say, as a technical writer, I value X, Y, and Z. tell me why I would want to enable this feature, which does A, B, and C.
Cool. Now let's go to the end of the process. Has it impacted in the review process? Have you changed your review
absolutely.
process? So let's hear about that. That's always, it's another pain that we all have to suffer.
Right, so using our own co-pilot, we can effectively give an additional layer of review to all of our written text.
Mhm.
I can use AI to tell me if my sentence, just like any other tool that checks grammar and spelling and so on. So you can ask it for recommendations. You can tell it what your voice and tone are, and to check if you're using that correctly. Look at your sentence length and your reading level and so on and so forth. So all of these things that we've already been doing for so long as technical writers is all easily available with AI, but you can just, simply do it on a more conversational level.
I
Mhm.
want
And
to add to that, Yochi, that
yeah, please.
I'm going to state the obvious, right? But AI and GPT are only going to be as good as the content they have to basically, work with, the grounding, right? And so I think in the process of rolling AI and GPT, whether it's in our own documentation portal when we do it, for our customers, it's a very great QA process for the documentation and for the content, because throughout the testing of these capabilities on your content, you will be able to see what content is missing just because, GPT did not retrieve an answer. And we are analyzing what happened and we're seeing, wait, there's no content. It could be a synonym problem, right? People are accustomed to ask something in a way that your content is not, reflecting or addressing. So you may want to work on that. Another key issue, for example, is your findability in search, because obviously the content or the specific topic pages that the AI will use to provide an answer to your user, they need to come up in search, right? And so it's another feedback for the tech leaders and the tech teams to look at the content and make some strategic decisions. And by the way, Laura mentioned our analytics. We capture every event, every query an end user asks is being captured, and we know if that user got an answer, did not get an answer, how many times did they try to get an answer. And so within the process of implementing AI and GPT, you'll be able to get, I think, unparalleled insights to how users are actually consuming your content. So it's a crucial impact. And
Right.
in terms of, yeah, sorry, Yochi.
No, that was exactly the next topic, was to talk about that, because I know that our writers within expert team, we grapple with exactly that issue. And that's something that we discuss. And so I really would want to understand how, especially Karen, from your point of view, is we all know that documentation is vital to the company, and that the documentation is going to it reflects on the value of the documentation, which reflects on the value of the documentation team. And these are just issues that we not only we can't get away from, we must deal with these things. And so how do you ensure that your documentation serves your clients effectively and is really used by them? You started to say about the statistics, but how do you get them also to adopt, to be using it? What strategies have you used for that?
You mean for the AI adoption?
For more, how can AI adoption help in getting more people to use the documentation? Because you can have all the information in the world, but we all know as technical writers that users may not use it, or they've had bad experiences in the past. So how do you handle that kind of scenario? How do you get users to use it?
Sure. So if it's okay, I'm going to actually split your question to three things, because I think you mentioned, first of all, how critical documentation and technical writers are today in the era of AI. And I know that there's been a very heated discussion, will AI take my job? And we actually, at Zoomin, we wrote a very interesting blog about this, basically saying, no way, the opposite. And I'll explain in a minute. So how important technical writers are right now in the era of AI is a very, very important topic to discuss. The second is, how do we actually convey the value of documentation? And then you also mentioned AI adoption. So let me start with the first point, and I'll make it as brief as possible. Why technical writers today are so critical? I think I mentioned it before, because no application can be built, no AI functionality can be implemented successfully without quality content. And if you haven't been reached out by your developer team or by your IT team or by your leaders asking, is our knowledge ready for AI? Then that's knocking on your door tomorrow or next week. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this. This is a completely, a whole new webinar. But technical writers today are at the core of any implementation of AI applications. In terms of documentation value, so yes, my team has led the implementation of a few methodologies to actually make technical writers really move from being a cost center to a genuine revenue growth engine for their companies. And the reason for that is because, I would say the main reason is because, first of all, we're seeing end users inclining to read technical content and product content when they make a decision to purchase or to upsell, more than they go to your .com, more than they have peer-to-peer conversations. There's clear data indicating that throughout the user journey, what makes the impact, whether they're going to buy your product or someone else's, is how good the documentation is. Now, the trick is to actually build and choose and build KPIs that actually measure this, like your traffic, like your returning users, for example, like your self-service rate, and so on and so forth. A lot to talk about here, but we've helped companies show, a clear ROI, to be honest, millions and millions of dollars, just because we knew exactly which KPIs to choose and how to measure them. Yeah, sorry, Yochi.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure that everybody, all our listeners, understands what you're talking about with KPIs and traffic. These are terms that we also use in marketing, but is there a way to kind of put it into the perspective of a technical writer? What is it that they should take from these words? Because they're just words that sometimes are thrown around.
Sure.
So can you explain that a little bit more?
Very, very simply put, how many people are actually visiting your documentation? Whether you have a documentation portal or resource center, whatever your interface is, tracking how many people visit your documentation, spend time reading a topic page or a new product release content that you have. This is what we call traffic. Now, when we say returning users, some of these people will come back again and again and again. And what we've seen is that if you, Yochi, actually, if you visit, I don't know, Yossi's documentation portal twice in the past month, you are actually more likely to become a paying customer. It's a clear indication that you're interested in the product and you're actually going to become a paying customer. So think about it from a business perspective. You as documentation team, you want to capture this data. You want to go back to your marketing team, to your sales team, to your CEO and say, hey, documentation is taking the lead. Here's what we're seeing. So try to simplify traffic a little bit.
That's good. Laura, you had started to talk about synonyms and seeing what's the effectiveness or the accuracy of your documentation. Can you just go over that a little bit more and explain to the listeners exactly what you're talking about, because it's unbelievably important. And without AI, we're just used to writing as we write, and we hope that we've gotten the audience and we've helped our users use the product effectively. But what is AI? How does that process work, or how should that process work, and how can we improve documentation through AI and search and user searches?
Oh, okay. So first of all, search synonyms is one of many aspects that you can use to optimize your search. And this isn't just for GPT search. This is for keyword search as well. So on the basic level, a search synonym basically says that word X is equivalent to word Y. So when a user searches for X, they will see search results for Y. So if you have a situation where your terminology internally is different than the terminology that your users are using, they're guaranteed to find a search result based on their query. Simply because the vocabulary is now equivalent.
And you used AI to improve this, the synonym list, or did you even have a synonym list before this?
We did, and when we see a situation where in either keyword search or in GPT search that customers are asking for information or asking questions and not getting answers, we look at the words in the query, and if we see that there is a mismatch, then we add more synonyms to our list.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It makes sense, but I know that this is, I know from experience, we know that this is something that takes a long time and is something that you always have to fine tune.
It's something that you are constantly working at to fine tune. Another aspect of search that we also do is called boosting, where we elevate the result of a specific content page one over the other. So what we did is, in the event that someone is searching for a particular concept without any information, so if I just do a search for uploading content, for example, with no other information, then I'm going to direct my reader to a about topic, which is a conceptual topic that explains the umbrella of that concept. If the user were to add, how do I or how to, then they'll be directed to the task topic, which is, how to do something. So by boosting the conceptual topics to the top, what it does is it enforces our customers who are just searching for ideas to find those bigger picture topics and start them on their process of searching for what they're looking for.
One last question, and that is, how often do you look at your statistics and you measure your performance? Is it something you do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? How do you do this assessment? Because that's a full-time job by itself.
We look at it week to week and month to month. And my colleague and I, or Rach is actually in this call, we sit and look at the information on a continuous basis. If we see something that looks odd, we jump on it immediately. And then we look at trend. So we're looking at changes over time. And then we change our strategy accordingly.
Give me one quick example. What do you mean by a trend? That people are asking a lot about a certain word, or what does that mean, a trend?
If we see consistently that users are asking a question and not getting answers, there's more than one user who's looking for something. The quickest fix that we found that works is to add that question into our FAQ. What it does is it gives, obviously, AI something to chew on, and B, it gives a link. In the FAQ, we always link to some other documentation topic. So now the user can go a little bit deeper. They've got the answer to their question, but if they want more relevant information, they can click the link and move on.
Cool. Laura and Karen, thanks. Don't leave. We still have more. And we can talk about this all morning. I could talk about it all day, but I'd like to now shift our focus from the documentation team and AI adoption to how we can support and help the documentation team handle these kind of major changes. And to do that, we have to talk to our expert on change management, Dr. Anat Jacoby. Now, Anat, I know that you have a PowerPoint, and I'm just going to stop you from time to time to ask other questions and to delve into these issues. but I'd like to understand what change management is and how it can help with this entire AI adoption. And by the way, any kind of major changes within an organization. So Anat, welcome back.
Thank you, Yochi, and thank you again both to Laura and Karen. And I do see that we have some discussion and questions on the chat. So I'm going to talk briefly about the concept of change management, and then we'll go back to the chat and to your questions. So I assume that you can see my presentation. And basically, I want to say a word about the idea of change management in adoption of AI. Okay, when you are adopting AI or any other system or any other process, okay, in your it could be in your team, in your organization, to your customers, you have to realize that change is something that people either like or dislike, okay, but it's something that has an influence on them. And the whole concept of change management is realizing that a change is something that people are going through, and that you have to, and that you as the change maker need to take that into consideration. Now, do people like change? Do they not like change? Well, I mean, it depends what the change is, okay? It's not necessarily that people don't like change, okay? But a lot of times the people like change. They go and get a new haircut because they like change and they want something new, okay? But a lot of, or most people don't like change that is imposed on them. And when the company says, from now on, this is a new system that is in your, that you need to work with now, or you need to work with AI now, or that you're saying that to your teams or your company or your department or your customers, you have to understand that this might influence people, and people, at least as a first step, can object to that and say, wait, I know the way we work now might not be the most efficient or the best, but we like it. It's ours. We know what to do. We know how to deal with it, and we don't want the change, okay? So change management is really an approach to dealing with the transition or the transformation that you need to help your organization, department, etc., do, to help the transformation of both the goals, the processes, the technology, okay, for people to actually adopt the change and understand the change and be and really taking whatever the change is to its benefits. So just a couple minutes on that, and one is to realize that this is something that you need to deal with, and a few tips on how to do it, how to best do it. Okay, quick chart to explain what I'm talking about. Usually when we go live with some process, with a new system, with a new process, with a new change, we experience the black line, okay? The minute that we say go live, the change is now happening in the organization, we get a drop in productivity. There's something new, there's chaos, people are not sure what to do, it's taking them longer because they don't know how to do it. All right. The idea is that at the end, we will be more productive with time. Okay. But there is always a drop. Something new, there is a drop in productivity. The whole idea of change management, which is managing this change, and we'll show how we can manage this change, is two things. One is to eliminate the drop. This is the blue line now that we're looking at, so that we have less of a drop in productivity. Okay, and the end result will be higher because we're trained, we know why it's important, we know what to do and how to do it, and then you get the results that you actually want. So how do we do it? Okay. First of all, the first point is to understand that this is happening, that this is happening, that this is going to happen, and to know that this is something that you need to deal with and you need to help the people that are going through this change. Okay, this is embracing the change. The second is you don't want to do it alone. You need to try to have people that are on your side, that understand the change and understand what needs to happen and help you do the change. These are called change agents. Okay, so if it's within your department, it can be a senior writer, or if it's something that is going through to other departments in your organizations, it can be managers of other departments. So first of all, you get the managers on board, or you get more people on board, so that you are not alone in trying to make this change happen, but you have help, you have your agents of change. Another is involve the writers early in the process, okay? Don't just say one day, okay, from now on this is happening, all right? But get people used to the idea. They can be involved in choosing the tools, in the opportunity, in the feedback. So when they're part of the change and part of thinking about the process, etc., they are much more likely to adopt it and be for it. Okay, so don't just drop it on people, but involve writers as early as possible, kind of like you do with little kids. Okay, you prepare them for something that is going to happen. Communication is a top word. Okay, communicate the benefits, communicate why it will make your life better. All right. And this is, again, something that you do in stages. You communicate before the change, you communicate during the change, you communicate after the change. But first of all, you say, all right, we know it's a change. We know it's going to take time. But look, there are a lot of benefits at the end. This is what you're really going to, this is why you're going to like the change at the end. Set clear goals, both for yourself and for other people doing it, so that you know exactly where you're going to. Always need to set goals in anything that you do in life. We know that as writers. And provide training, all right? It's not enough just to say we have a new system or we have a new process, but we have to understand how to do it. What needs to be different and how do we actually do it? When we understand the change and we understand what the new process is, then we can actually perform it. Gradual implementation, as well as we're saying that the communication needs to be gradual and start before, during, and after. The same thing with the implementation. All right, you don't, as much as possible, you try not to cut and say from until now, this is what happened. From now, this is what's going to happen. But let's start with a pilot. Let's start with a specific task. Let's get used to it, and then we can increase.
Anat, so I have I have a question about pilot projects. How long would you say these should last? Meaning that, and we know this from different clients. Different clients have different timetables or cultures. How can you explain how a pilot project, how long it should take for adoption, and that whole process, how long should it take? I know that every company is different, but is there some sort of, in all your experience, that a project of this size, a pilot project maybe should take 6 months, or is it 3 months? How would we measure that? How would we plan for that?
So I think the answer is in the question. Okay, it does depend. Okay, but I think the point to take into account is that it needs to suit the situation. Okay, so if we're doing a small change, then we need a small pilot. If it's a big change, then we're trying, and it's the same thing about doing something gradual or communicating, okay? If it's something that is a really big change, then we might be able to do the pilot over time. If it's something that is small, then we don't want to make a big deal out of it altogether, okay? Now, a pilot is, so that's one, okay? So it depends also on the, on how big the change is, and something that will be relative to the change. The other thing is, depending what it is, and how much you can do a pilot, because sometimes there needs to be like a cutoff date. And you say, until now you work like this, and from now on you work like this. And it's harder then to do a pilot, because you cannot say, let's say if you're changing a system in your organization, then you don't always have the possibility of working with two systems gradually, and some people from the team can do one and the other do the other, or saying, okay, this project will do with this and this project will do this. So a lot of times you might want to do a longer pilot, but it's not necessarily something that is possible. Okay, so it is a depends answer, but hopefully I gave you some parameters in order to judge and be able to do it yourself. Encourage collaboration, okay? You don't want people to feel that they're alone in this process, so share experiences and best practices, both within your team. It can be your as the change leader, it can be something that you are sharing, or involve other people in it. How did it go? What did you learn? Have the team learn from one another. Always a good idea in any case. Of course, monitor and adjust strategies as needed, and provide support and resources. So that's kind of a few tips on how to do this. Yochi, I'm turning it back to you for questions and answers, both on this topic and other topics.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much, and thanks everybody. We're going to now start with a Q&A, but just before that, I'd like to invite everybody to visit our LinkedIn page, the Expert Team LinkedIn page, and we can continue this discussion, because this is something that's very large, very wide, and I believe that all of us can really get a lot out of that discussion between all of us, an open discussion or a semi-open discussion on our LinkedIn page, and really dive into innovation. I think it's something that, first of all, AI is also developing itself. So it's not that the tool just stopped and now we're going to go on for the ride. It's something that we ourselves have to learn all the time and continue on. And so now let's open the floor for some questions.
I see that Gila has a question, Yochi. She's raising her hand.
Gila, hi. Gila, you know what? I think we have to ask to go off mute. 1 second. I can't find Gila. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Gila, can you put yourself on? Can you
sorry,
unmute yourself?
I didn't have a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So who has a question? Let's start. I know that there was a discussion going on behind the scenes. So if there's something that we can bring up, Laura, if you want to bring up that discussion that you had about gating.
Yeah, so there were two questions. One is how to handle gated content when it comes to GPT and AI. And the other is how to show value to your executives, bosses, etc., when your content is gated.
First of all, explain what gated is, please.
Sure,
I don't
yeah.
know if
So
everyone knows.
Gated content means that it is not accessible from Google or any other search engine. You must be an authenticated user on the system in order to access the content. This typically means that you can't search for it in Google. And the only way you can find that content is by going to the site itself. Now, every company makes a decision whether or not to make their content public. What I can say from our perspective at Zoomin, we were gated 100%. And we ungated our content sometime in December of 2022. This was a decision that we made, unilaterally across the organization. The buy-in was huge. We all knew that this is what we wanted to do. And in order to get there, we had to make sure our documentation was ready to be exposed to the public. So this was the impetus for us to start rapidly deploying our documentation. Now, when you have gated and ungated content with Zoomin, you have the ability to decide which content gets exposed to which user. Every user has a role, and you can assign permissions based on your user's roles. So you can be assured that your public user or the user that is not authenticated has one set of permissions. Your customers have another set of permissions. Your employees have a third set of permissions. Your partners can have a fourth set of permissions, and so on and so forth. You can also create the permissions for users by the product that they have bought. The decision is purely up to every organization to decide how they want to handle visibility. Now, when it comes to AI, what you want to make sure is that the AI engine is not being fed information that you don't want your customers to see. Okay, so when you have gated content and ungated content, you want to make sure that the public user isn't getting fed information from your gated content. And this currently doesn't happen with Zoomin.
Okay. Now the second question was about the value. And I think that's a topic that weighs heavily on all of us.
So everyone knows, I mean, that customers, before they buy your documentation, are going to read it in order to see whether or not the features that they're looking for are supported. If your documentation is gated, they have no access to that information unless it's in the .com site. So what it means when you ungate your content is you are allowing your documentation to be an avenue for sales.
Which gives it more value. And that's something that we also, in general, it has nothing to do with AI adoption. It's something that we grapple with all the time. You have to show value for your documentation, because this is a large expense, and for any company, and it has to show return on investment. And it's not something that can be obvious in certain senses. It can be a pre-sales and a pre-marketing, marketing and a pre-sales tool, but it also has to continue to support the users throughout their lifetime within the company's product. And that's something that we always have to look at. And we want to hope also that AI then improves that, because we can finally look at true statistics and show that, and analytics, and show that to management, that here people are getting the answers they want, they're happier, they're able to work on the program in a more effective, efficient manner, and they're much happier.
By the way, we already have initial data that companies that have implemented GPT in technical writing have seen a higher self-service rate, which is a very critical performance indicator. It means that people are actually able to find what they're looking for without heavily being dependent on your support, without opening a case, without calling your call center. And it's in quite significant numbers in comparison to non-adopters. So something to look out for sure.
And it's something that, again, it all boils down to the same thing. Moshe Foreman, you wanted to ask a question.
Yes, thank you very much. I was wondering about the security aspect and the gated information, because if this editorial co-pilot is training the data model, then your company information will be entering into the LLM. And you know, I'm not sure if the gated information we're talking about here is the same thing. That means that if somebody using ChatGPT, for example, could actually get some proprietary information. And so the question is really how are you dealing with that issue? And just to illustrate the point, whilst we were talking, I fed a prompt into ChatGPT and also into Perplexity. And I took a blog that I'm working on, and I said, please rewrite this using the Zoomin template. And it came up wonderfully, you know, so thanks guys for giving me this great template. I assume this isn't top secret because I assume it appears on your website. But you know, but basically the question is security. How do you keep, you know, not gated information on websites, but actually information entering the LLM?
Very good
So-
question.
It's a very good question. And I'll try to describe it. I think I also replied to someone else asking this on the chat, and let me try and summarize this very critical issue. So let's start first of all with there are two methodologies or two ways for you to work with AI or GPT. One is to use open models like OpenAI, which is what Zoomin does, and I'll explain how we're doing this in a secure way. And the other, by the way, it can be OpenAI, it can be, you know, whatever other open models you'd like. And the other one is actually for us to directly connect to private models that customers have, which has its benefits, but also its disadvantages. Now, the main concern, obviously, is what's happening when you work with public models like OpenAI. So to begin with, we have legally opted out of any possibility for OpenAI to train their models based on content that is being sent to them. If your content is gated, it's not even being sent to them. But even if your content is public, OpenAI cannot use this content to do any model training. So the content is being sent to retrieve the answer to the query, and that's it. It's not being stored, it's not being processed, it's not being used to train models. So that's one thing. The other one is that we, of course, mask any private information. So if someone would put in a query, it's I don't think I've ever seen this, but let's say that someone wants to ask a question like, what is a content role group, right? So Yochi, if you were to ask this question, you're not likely to put into the chat your name, your address, your phone number, your bank account, right? Like you're not likely to do that. But even if you were, our technology is able to mask that, the PII, and only send the model the keywords that are relevant to the subject matter, right? So we would strip the query, we will mask all the private information, we'll see exactly what you're looking for, and then this is going to be sent to OpenAI to say, please give me an answer to this question.
That was set up. Who sets that up? Who's responsible for AI security within your organization?
It's a joint responsibility, right? But in this case, it's our technology. So the Zoomin technology enables us to strip any search to its keywords and only send that to OpenAI. And by the way, another thing that it's important to mention, we do not tell the model, please look at, you know, Moshe, please look at Moshe's entire content repository. No. First of all, we will find the specific content page, the specific topic page that has the answer to the question, and only this specific topic page will be sent to AI, to OpenAI, and out of that, it would give the answer. So we're really limiting the scope of what is being sent out, but in any case, it's not being processed by the models.
Okay. Does anyone, thanks. Thank you for that. It's an important topic we'll be continuing to grapple with in all different areas. Does anyone else have any questions? I saw that there are questions on the chat here on the side.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes. 2 minutes left for last question.
Last question. Last question. Last call. Okay, so want to again thank Laura and thank Karen for all their time and for their cooperation and for giving us all this great information. And thanks, Anat, for
And
discussing
thank you,
a topic
Yochi.
that this is a topic that change management is a topic that many people in documentation we really don't know about, or we don't look at it from that point of view. So this was really something that was very, very important, and something that all technical writers should keep in mind. And we'd be happy also if you're going through this process or any other processes to please contact us, because Anat can definitely help you on this, help your company deal with these issues, whether it's within your team or company-wide. I think this could really, really help. It's helped many of our clients. So I guess with that, I see that we do have questions, but let's continue them on our LinkedIn page. I put the link to our page on the chat, and we look forward to hearing from all of you and to seeing everybody in our next webinar.
Thank you all for coming, and
Thank
have
you
a
all.
good
Take
good
care.
day.
Have a
Quiet
safe
day.
and quiet day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Thanks, bye.